Welcome to Unafraid Show Daily Live. And this is where sports is explained simply and quickly. So, the stories that you need to know, the stuff that you need to know, and we're going to hit it quick, and you're going to be able to have all the information, and it's going to be unbiased. All right. So, today we got the government getting involved in college football schedules. And this just flies in the face of what everybody keeps telling us that they want. Now, JJ Reddick is supposedly the new coach of the LA Lakers, what that means and everything in between. CJ Stroud throws strays at Aaron Rodgers, which I know he ain't gonna like, and it's weird for an active player to do that. And the gambling is turning into an absolute mess when it comes to sports right now. But we're going to start. First of all, you guys make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and of course, share because Unafraid Show Daily Live is here with you on the daily. Now, we're going to start with college football and the government being in college football because for so many years, people have told us keep the politics out of sports, keep it out of sports. Fans don't want to hear that at all. Fans just want to see sports. Well, politics, if we're honest, have always been a part of sports. You got Kurt Flood with free agency all the way up to the Mitchell Report. You've had lawsuits in college football. Austin versus the NCAA. Ed O'Bannon versus the NCAA. Tom Brady versus the NFL. Like, sports are constantly in the world of politics. Even though people would tell you, we want it out, it's always been a part of it. And politicians keep weighing in on sports. And people in the political lane, you got Hannity talking about Caitlin Clark and what's going on with Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee. You got the president when he was weighing in on it. Politics always is in the world of sports. And it is frustrating for some people, and I get it. Now, what's going on here is going on in North Carolina. And this is all started because of college football realignment. And it's causing some legal issues. And these legal issues are actual states' issues and states' rights issues. Now, it feels like a national issue, but what it comes down to at its core is states' issues and states' rights issues. And we've seen this in college football realignment, Oregon and Oregon State with the Pac 12 breaking up, Washington and Washington State, what went on with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, with Oklahoma State trying to keep Oklahoma in the Big 12 instead of going to the SEC. We got it with UCLA paying calimony to Cal for what's that, $10 million, $10 million a year for 6 years because one's going to the ACC, one's going to the Big Ten. And now we're looking at what's going on over at the ACC because North Carolina and North Carolina State are trying to leave the ACC. And what's going on there is there is a bill that has passed in North Carolina that is supposed to promote economic development. And what that is that North Carolina and North Carolina State will have to play Appalachian State, Charlotte, or East Carolina every single season in football, and not just at home. Because under the proposal, the Tar Heels and the Wolfpack will be required to compete in a home and away series with all three of them over the 6 year span. But the real juicy part of this is that it's not just in football, it's in men's and women's basketball. And while that currently happens by default, since both NC State and North Carolina are in the ACC, this actually is going to extend over into those schools that I was talking about because they're going to have to play each other, those schools, every single year, which dictates what happens in their non conference. And those are typically bye games. So, and that's where the economic, impact and promote economic equality for the schools is a big thing because those are forced bye games. That means that North Carolina and North Carolina State would be forced to pay Appalachian State, Charlotte, and East Carolina to play those games. And now this kind of disturbs what's going on in the ACC because it looks very obvious that this conference is going to be breaking up the same way that the Pac-12 did. And you had the ACC, which just moved its headquarters to Charlotte. And at first, it was just Clemson and Florida State trying to leave the conference. But now you got North Carolina, NC State joining in on that, and there's going to be more likely to come in that. But now back to the law. Is this actually the right way to go about things? Should more states be joining in and legislate the continuance of rivalries? Because in Oregon and Oregon State, even though Oregon's going to the Big Ten, Oregon State doesn't quite have a home, but they're playing in the Mountain West right now. That creates an economic gap between the schools that was already significant. And they found a way to keep that game going, but it turns into a bye game on some level. So now North Carolina and North Carolina State, because of House Bill 965, entitled the UNC Interstate Athletic Competition, it passed the House Appropriations Committee. And now Appalachian State, Charlotte, or East Carolina are going to be the beneficiaries of that over the next 6-year spans, where they have to have home and aways at both. So you're essentially saying that those schools have to be on the schedule every single year, which essentially takes North Carolina and Appalachian State out of the non-conference, out of the non-conference race to play other teams. If they head over to the SEC or the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. So now your non-conference is already set for you. And if the conference requires you to play Power 5 teams in the non-conference, now you got yourself a problem. So here is where politics continuously rear their head in sports, even though people allegedly say that they don't want to. Now to the next thing. My Los Angeles Lakers are, according to Shams Charania, going to hire JJ Reddick as their new head coach. And if Shams is saying it, it is damn near as good as done. We're talking about the man who broke the news that the president had COVID. Now, the question is, with the Lakers, is this a good idea, and how does all of this play along with it? Because JJ Reddick is the beneficiary of something that Donald Trump was the beneficiary of with The Apprentice on television. When we watch people on television, we assume that they are the authorities, and sometimes they are the experts, sometimes their platform elevates them to that. And JJ Reddick on television, he has garnered people saying that maybe he should be a general manager. And it is clear he's got a good grasp of basketball. He stands up to Stephen A. Smith. He pushes back. So it appears that he has the demeanor to be able to handle superstars in the locker room. And we're talking about somebody who was a superstar in college, was a really good player in the NBA, made a ton of money, was a good worker, well respected. And those are typically the coaches that have high levels of success in the NBA, because like star players like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, all these guys don't typically have a ton of success coaching. It is the guys that touched every part of the locker room, like the Steve Kerrs, where, yes, they made big shots. They've been one of the better players on the team, but they've also been part of barely holding on to a roster spot. And those people being able to relate to everybody on the roster typically make very good coaches. And that appears that that's where JJ Reddick is in this situation. But also, are the Lakers trying to recapture that Pat Riley magic of the 1980s by pulling a man out of the broadcast booth? Because one thing that makes LeBron James different in this whole conversation is he's in the twilight of his career. Anthony Davis is still in his prime, even though he's on the back half of his career. He's still cemented in the prime of his career. And this franchise is in win now mode. So the question is, can JJ Reddick lead them there? Because one of the things that makes LeBron different is that in his GOAT conversation is that he's a man who not only won titles with one coach, two coach, but three different coaches and played in the championship under five different head coaches. And to be fair or not, if LeBron James returns to LA this offseason, JJ Reddick is going to be looked at as his handpicked guy. So JJ Reddick is going to have to go in that locker room and be willing to deal with the pay your dues crowd and be able to make sure that everybody in that locker room knows that even though he was doing a podcast with LeBron James, he's the head man in charge. But it's also going to be interesting to see because JJ Reddick putting him in a situation, himself in a situation of this win now, and and if he doesn't do well, may never get another head coaching job again. It's interesting. But now, speaking of rookies, this time NFL Rookie of the Year, CJ Stroud. The dude had praise for Matthew Stafford while hitting Aaron Rodgers with a stray that actually came from Tom Brady. So CJ Stroud, he went on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast this last week and held it down for Matthew Stafford. And what he said was, quote, he might be, and he's talking about Matthew Stafford. He said he might be up there with Brady and them. I'm a student of the game. Stafford's a dog. He's a dog. You don't understand. Like, I don't watch nobody else. And he talked about he watches Patrick Mahomes some, but he does stuff that you can't coach, and that Matthew Stafford is super good. And he said he'll beat you with the same thing every time, and all that new no-look stuff I got from him. And that's one of the guys that I'm a big fan of his. Now, on one hand, it's refreshing to hear that a young guy like CJ Stroud is not just looking at Patrick Mahomes, because you can't coach a lot of the stuff that he does. But what he does do is focus on somebody like Matthew Stafford. Steady. He's a cruise ship. Dude is just really good and consistent. But where it does get a little crazy is that where you admit that you're a fan of a peer at the expense of another peer, and that being Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers is taking a stray from CJ Stroud, pumping up Matthew Stafford that Tom Brady said. Now, let me get into it, because we're looking at CJ Stroud, and he was saying that if Aaron Rodgers, if Matthew Stafford were put in the same position as Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, because obviously he was playing in Detroit, bad, the franchise wasn't run well, the rosters weren't good, anything like that. He said that Matthew Stafford would have won 3-4 Super Bowls if he were given that same situation. And he also said that he had talked to Tom Brady about it, and it's how he it's how he treats his teammates. And he was like, I don't know how Aaron does, but his teammates don't play for him the same way. And I want to point out something that Aaron Rodgers said right before he got traded to the Jets. He said, I believe I still can play at an MVP level. And that made me laugh, because I'm like, Aaron, why do we care if you can play at an MVP level? You should be caring, especially in this twilight of your career. Can you play at a championship level? Because those are two different things. And CJ Stroud has been out with Micah Parsons on this world tour. And I'm wondering how the football consuming audience is going to handle it if he has any struggles this year, when he's been the face of media with Micah Parsons this offseason. But I don't think he's necessarily wrong about what he said about Aaron Rodgers. And you guys can weigh in on this. Leave it in the comments. Was CJ Stroud correct in this? And should he have said this out loud? Because if another player had been this open about it, hey man, when I was playing, obviously it was different. But yeah, I mean, and Aaron Rodgers, like we're talking about, like their stats are close. They're relatively close. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has one of the highest touchdown to interception ratios of all time. Their completion percentages are close. Well, actually, their TD to interception ain't close. It's 4.5 to 1 to 2 to 1. But Stafford has more game-winning drives. But obviously, that's because Aaron Rodgers was winning a lot of these games prior to that. But now the last thing up, gambling mess, because we've seen Shohei Ohtani's interpreter. He's facing 33 years in jail. And remember the Jontay Porter story, Michael Porter Jr.'s brother? Well, it has taken an even deeper turn because federal prosecutors are now alleging that Jontay Porter had racked up large gambling debts and that he was then encouraged to clear those debts by throwing games and, the thing with the prop bets that got him jammed up. So now think about this. It wasn't even that he was that this is the thing you got to be afraid of is where players either get caught. Like imagine if somebody had pictures of a big celebrity doing something that they did not want out in the public that would ruin their reputation. And somebody's like, hey, yo, I just need you to hit these prop bets for me. You can have the electronic information back and we're all done. Think about that because that's actually deeper, the blackmail aspect of it. Now, Jontay Porter allegedly communicated with the group of co-conspirators when he notified them before another game that he was going to be sick and leave a game early. And then the man that he was with, who is a Brooklyn man, who's accused of helping Jontay Porter, placed prop bets on himself, got arrested at JFK. Dude had a one-way ticket to Australia, a bag stuffed with $12,000 in cash, and 2 cashier's checks worth up to $80,000. So this story is continuing to grow, and we gonna see how this works out because this gambling mess is not going away. It is not going away, and players have to be more vigilant and take care of themselves. And leagues have to be careful about these prop bets because those are much easier to manipulate, and teams can still win and everything else with those things going on. But you guys, I'm George Reister. This is Unafraid Show Daily. Tell a friend, keep it locked, and make sure that you share and come back tomorrow. Peace out.